So what sort of, I don't know, early warning signs? Like, if we were going to talk about like, okay, so, we know it's bad. We know it's really bad, right? Now, it doesn't necessarily, by the way, maybe another thing we should clarify before we get into the early warning signs, it doesn't always necessarily involve physical abuse.
No.
Is that right?
Right, absolutely. It's usually emotional abuse. Sometimes there is physical abuse along with it. But by and large, I'd say the largest percentage when we're talking about toxic relationships as opposed to abusive relationships, and I'm not saying that abusive relationships are not toxic,
Right.
but we're really talking about emotional abuse, emotional control, behavioral control, without there necessarily being physical abuse. And that actually is very confusing for a lot of people because they don't have any bruises to show.
Right.
But, they're injured on the inside. They're injured in a very invisible way. And that is very hard because then people don't feel that their story is going to be taken seriously. They don't feel like they can go and get help for it because they can't really prove it.
Right, and that it does become a sticky situation when it gets, if and when it gets to become a legal situation. That can be really bad. So you don't want it to get that far. You want to get a hang on this, or learn about this and be able to do something about this, get out of it before it gets to that sort of a situation.
Right.
Because in this society, there is some recognition. Well, it's a tricky thing. There is some recognition of words or psychological abuse, right? But there's also an earlier generation or two or three or five, that are of the generation of sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me sort of attitude. And you go, well, actually words can hurt you. But we don't want to go to any extreme with that. And, we're not talking about, some kind of weird liberal thing where nobody has freedom of speech anymore. But we're just talking about the fact that you can twist and meld and mesh and screw around with somebody's sense of reality.
Right.
It's called gaslighting, right? What is that?
Yeah.
Concept?
So it actually comes from a term that is from a movie of the same name. And gaslighting is when you really just make someone feel like they're going crazy. Like they no longer have a handle on reality. They don't know what's real and what's not real and what's actually happened and what hasn't happened. And you make them feel like they're losing their mind. It is one of the most cruel things to do to somebody. And people who are narcissists, people who are controllers, love to do this to other people. It really is something that can get under your skin. And it's very hard to undo gaslighting once you've been through it, because you need to sort of spend a lot of time checking out what was real about that and what wasn't real about that, and really trusting your instincts. And you learn to not trust your instincts because you think you're going crazy.
Right. And I want to be very, very specific about this because I've already seen a couple of cases, on Facebook and around. Some of these words get out there and they get around and people misunderstand them. And they start calling things that's not gaslighting, and it always gets my attention, not because I'm trying to be all detail specific or picky, but because we're trying to be very specifically clear about what these things are. And like, for example, an example of gaslighting is a very purposeful thing. It's not something done by accident. If somebody's gaslighting you, for example, they might, in a relationship, I think, maybe this was even in the movie. This is an old movie. This is like in the 1940s, I think. The husband's trying to drive this wife crazy.
Right.
And so he starts doing things that are messing with her sense of reality. A set of keys. She puts her keys on the top of a dresser. And then she leaves the room, and he takes the keys. And he hides them somewhere. And then the next day or the next time she needs them or something, she can't, he goes, hey, where are the keys? Right? And she goes, oh, they're right. Oh, no, they're not there. Oh, I don't know where they are. Well, where do you have them? Well, I put them right here. Well, they're not there now. And, this creates a problem. And then or she goes, oh, I thought they were right there or something. And then he, then she leaves the room and he puts them back.
Right.
Right. And then she comes back and it's like, there they are. And it's like, well, and he's downstairs the whole time. So he's not there, with her, because that would be too obvious. Right. But she's like up there freaking out. He's like, hey, what the hell? And then she's like that they were there, then they weren't there. And, so it's like he's doing this thing to her in order to get her unhinged.
And to think about the nature of that kind of personality that can see someone struggling like this, that you can see them really trying to find something that you took. And you're not going to give them a break, and you're not going to say, here it is, and it was just a joke. Not that it was ever a funny joke, but still, you're not going to relieve them of that kind of stress. And you're going to, in fact, enjoy it. You're going to enjoy the power that you're exerting over this other person, which is really, again, very cruel, very selfish, which is part of the nature of toxic relationships, that one person is operating in a very self-centered, very selfish way. What also happens with gaslighting is that the other person starts to really not only think that they're going crazy, but they're going to be portrayed that way by the person who has made them feel that way. So, my poor wife, let's say, she's really lost her mind and she's really, going crazy. That actually comes in handy later on if she ever were to press charges, or if she ever were to say, this person is doing something to me, because she'll be discounted, right? Considering the source.
That's right.
And so if you can discredit the source of the information, then people don't listen to your information.
Precisely. And I think in the case of the movie, the husband was doing it to the wife because he was trying to have her committed or something, because that was going to get him her fortune or something like that, or an inheritance. It had to do with money or something. But there's lots of reasons people could engage in that kind of behavior. I mean, some people, these toxic relationships or narcissists or something might simply get off.
Yeah, it's a power play.
On being able to do that to somebody, right?
And that is actually one of the warning signs. So we're talking about red flags.
So now let's